The views and opinions expressed on America's Workforce Union podcast and its digital media channels are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of the producers or sponsors.
Welcome to the America's Workforce Radio Podcast, the flagship production of the American Workers Radio and Podcast Network, where organized labor and its never-ending fight to protect the rights of the American worker come first. Now, presented by LIUNA, Laborers International Union of North America. Here's your host, Ed Flash Ferens.
Treasury employees go to court to fight more layoffs at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Meanwhile, UAW members in Illinois vote to go on strike. And today on the show, it's our first Friday with Fred Redmond, Secretary-Treasurer of the AFL-CIO. Welcome to the Friday, July 3rd edition of America's Workforce, where we're available on at least 5 platforms. That includes YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. Fred Redmond will be our featured guest on the show today, longtime supporter of America's Workforce. We had Fred on the show when he was a member of the Steelworkers. I want to say he's a member of the Steelworkers for over a half century. Several years back, he became Secretary-Treasurer of the AFL-CIO and reelected to that position in the early part of June. We're going to talk about what's going on in organized labor, and we're going to zero in on that convention. It was the 30th AFL-CIO Constitutional Convention. Fred and Liz Schuler reelected to their respective positions. Of course, Liz, president of the AFL-CIO. And during that convention, the Labor Federation laid out the most ambitious union organizing target ever. We're talking a goal of 2 million new organized workers by 2031. The resolution called "We Are the Organized Power of Working People" passed at the convention, encouraging the Federation to coordinate multi-union campaigns, align bargaining dates across all sectors, launch a mass training program for rank-and-file organizers, draw a hard line on political endorsements. No candidate, and Fred is going to talk about this, no candidate gets labor support unless they're willing to fight for collective bargaining rights. And I'll tell you, we got burned in the state of Virginia when Abigail Spanberger said, oh yeah, no problem. We'll bring those collective bargaining rights back for public sector workers. And when she gets in office, sorry, not going to happen. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the great divide in America. You know, we are the United States of America, but you know what? In so many ways, we are the divided states of America, politically and when it comes to wages. We're going to talk how things have changed here in the last, 60, 70 years. So Fred Redmond, our featured guest on this day before the 4th of July, where we celebrate 250 years as a country. Now, a brief look into the world of labor. This segment brought to you by Boyd Watterson Asset Management. You can find more at boydwatterson.com. The National Treasury Employees Union has filed a brief with the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia, asking for a federal district judge in Washington to review the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's new plan to eliminate staff, half of its remaining staff. They've already eliminated a lot. They want to eliminate half of what they have left. The Trump administration is pushing an expedited timeline for the job cuts, but the union, NTEU, argues that the Bureau's year-long delay in issuing its subsequent reduction in force plan demonstrates a lack of urgency, warranting extraordinary relief from the court. Judge Amy Berman Jackson of the U.S. District Court for D.C. had issued a preliminary injunction blocking an attempt to cut 90% of the agency's staff, after which the Bureau, under Acting Director Russell Vogt, requested that the D.C. Circuit issue a 45-day remand for Judge Jackson to reconsider her injunction. The union agreed that Judge Jackson should review the reduction in force plan before the appellate judges, but maintained that the Trump administration lacked any valid justification for expediting those job cuts. Now, the agency currently has fewer than 1,200 employees remaining compared to the 1,700 that were authorized for fiscal year 2025. Meanwhile, that same union, NTEU, has filed a lawsuit against the IRS, claiming that the IRS violated its employees' First Amendment rights by banning pro-union displays in the workforce. In the latest Trump administration attack on federal workers' unions, IRS leadership directed its facilities managers to throw out NTEU materials displayed by agency employees. Now, this comes after the IRS told employees back in February that it was canceling its contract with the National Treasury Employees Union, which the union is also challenging in court. Let's go to Niles, Illinois now, where over 800 members of UAW Local 5101, they represent workers at Woodward MPC, have voted by a margin of 71% to authorize a strike after months of company stall tactics and unfair labor practices during contract talks. The workers voted to affiliate with the UAW last fall, and since then, the company has committed over 36 unfair labor practices, including total refusal to negotiate with the union. The workers are fighting for industry-leading wages, fair progression, time off, and job security. Brandon Campbell heads Region 4, where Niles, Illinois is located. Brandon's been on the show. Good guy. He said Woodward needs to get serious about reaching a fair deal with the nearly 900 workers who make this company run. Local 5101 is done waiting for the company to do the right thing, and Region 4 has their backs. UAW.org for more updates on that. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's our first Friday with Fred Redmond, Secretary-Treasurer of the AFL-CIO.
You're listening to America's Workforce with Ed Flash Ferens.
It takes LIUNA to keep America running. Over 70,000 public employees are part of LIUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, delivering critical services such as healthcare and emergency response, as well as maintaining roads and sanitation systems. Even the National Postal Mail Handlers Union, representing over 47,000 U.S. postal workers, is affiliated with LIUNA. Find out what it takes for LIUNA to keep America running at liuna.org. That's LIUNA.org.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Communication Workers of America. You can find more at cwa-union.org. This segment of the show is brought to you by the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. For more information, please visit bmwe.org. Are you an experienced mechanical insulator looking to take your career to the next level? Insulators Local 50 in Central Ohio has steady work for a number of years. Insulators Local 50 offers a total wage and benefits package that can't be beat. It's not just the competitive wages. Local 50 also provides medical, vision, and dental insurance with no paycheck deductions for you and your family. Don't miss out on the chance to secure your future. Join us at Insulators Local 50. Earn great pay and the best benefits. Visit insulators50.com/AWF50 to fill out the online form, and a Local 50 representative will call to begin the process. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers. You can find more at ifpte.org.
America's Workforce is sponsored in part by Boyd Watterson Asset Management, LLC. Find out more about our investment solutions tailored to meet the needs of Taft-Hartley funds at boydwatterson.com.
There is means unity and strength for workers.
We are the USW.
We are the USW.
The United Steelworkers.
The largest industrial union in North America.
We represent 850,000 members in the U.S., Canada, and the Caribbean.
We work in metals,
rubber,
chemicals,
paper,
oil refining,
atomic energy, and the service sector.
We are steelworkers, standing strong and fighting for what's right.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, where you can find more at teamster.org.
America's Workforce appreciates our sponsor, the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council, who represents more than 18,000 workers from 19 affiliated local unions and district councils.
The Iron Workers Great Lakes District Council, consisting of 8 iron worker local unions in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan. We build the skylines and bridges along the Great Lakes. With more work than ever before, the Great Lakes District Council is actively searching out the next great iron worker, whether it's building the next Intel plant or constructing a bridge to safely connect our great cities along the lake. So join the Iron Workers Great Lakes District Council today. Find out how and learn more about the council by visiting iwdistrictcouncil.com.
Now, back to America's Workforce. Here's Ed Flash Farrens.
And remember, you can check us out on Facebook or follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter. That would be AWF Union Podcast, AWF Union Podcast. Well, it's our first Friday with Fred. Boy, the summer is flying by. It's Friday, July 3rd. Tomorrow is the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And joining us as our featured guest today is Fred Redmond, Secretary-Treasurer of the AFL-CIO. He's got some comments on the state of America today. But Fred, welcome back to the show. The first thing I want to talk about is the 30th AFL-CIO Constitutional Convention. You and I talked about it last month. You were getting ready for it. And I'll tell you, I talked to a number of people on this show who said it was one of the best conventions they ever went to. A lot of energy, a lot of positivity, and a lot of talk about organizing. I love the story about the fact that the AFL-CIO said in the next 5 years, we got to add 2 million more workers to unions. Yeah, major organizing drive. Let's start right there because, you know, we got to keep moving forward. Talk to me about it, Fred.
Well, first of all, I agree with those people you talked to. This was probably the best AFL-CIO convention that I've ever attended, and I've been attending these conventions since 2006. You know, in terms of organizing, Flash, you know, the challenge is that there's so many workers in our country today who want to be part of the labor movement. They view the labor movement as the one vehicle that is fighting back on behalf of workers, and they also view the labor movement as a trusted source for information and a trusted source for making sure that people understand what's at stake for working families in this country. So, you know, the challenge is out there. And when we say 2 million members, you know, over the next few years, then, you know, that's the floor. That's not the ceiling. You know, we issued the call at our last convention in 2022. We surpassed 1 million members, which was the call at that time. And we feel with the enthusiasm that's out there, we could, you know, surpass 2 million. But that's our goal.
Fred, there's been a pushback, well, on federal workers, number one. You know what happened in the first Trump administration and now this one here in Project 2025. Do you think that has energized a lot of workers in America? You know, you got that, and then you got this crazy thing called income inequality today. I mean, inflation, affordability, that's the buzzword right now. You gotta, and I'm seeing more workers go on strike as well. What do you think? What do you think of the state of labor right now?
Well, I think the state of labor is you know, goes to the heart of exactly what you just said. I mean, workers in this country have learned, okay, has really learned the difference in pay inequality. Workers in this country understand that the rich is getting richer while working people is, in a state of not receiving the fruits of their labor. So I think that has a lot. Well, I know that has a lot to do with it. And another thing that has a lot to do with is, they're watching this income inequality gap broaden, okay, while workers' wages are being frozen and, remaining still. I mean, workers are not advancing at the rate that they should based on the productivity that they produce. So, those are some of the key factors that's driving this drive toward union and workers wanting to get involved in changing this country for the better for working families. So, the whole issue of income inequality is rampant. It's out of control. Billionaires and corporations are reaping the wealth that our members create every day for their employers without any consideration for workers. I mean, look at the things that they're talking about. They stripped away protections from OSHA. They are talking about making adjustments to Social Security and Medicare. They're talking about, workers being, talking about getting overtime protection, and we haven't seen the fruits of any of that. So, workers is fed up. They're sick and tired of this administration taking them for granted. And that's one of the things that's driving this goal toward unionization.
We got some numbers here on the great divide in America when it comes to the working class. CBS News reported that the third quarter of last year, 2025, showed the top 1% of households in the country owning 31.7% of all U.S. wealth. That is the highest share they've had since the Federal Reserve started tracking household wealth going back to 1989. That means, what I just said means, the wealthiest 1% held roughly as much in assets as the bottom 90% of Americans combined. We're talking $55 trillion. $55 trillion. Let me throw in artificial intelligence. And I heard from Pat Gallagher. Pat is one of our guests here on America's Workforce on behalf of the North Coast Labor Federation. He was at the convention in Minneapolis. He said, Flash, man, they really talked a whole lot about artificial intelligence. And obviously, you and I have had this conversation. We've talked to a lot of unions about it because obviously you want this to be an asset for you. You don't want it to replace your job. Well, what was said at the convention about artificial intelligence, Fred?
Oh, we heard from workers. We heard from workers who are already seeing the effects of artificial intelligence in terms of how it's negatively affecting their workplaces. Look, the AFL-CIO have made major investments in terms of resources and personnel to make sure that we're not caught flat-footed. We have really been on top of this issue. Our position is officially, we're not opposed to artificial intelligence, but what we oppose to is using artificial intelligence to eliminate, to change jobs without having the workers at the table involved in making those decisions. So, we feel that the people who know most about the workplace and how the workplace could be more productive is the workers themselves. Okay, so we are opposed to using artificial intelligence against workers and not using artificial intelligence as a major source of improving workers' work lives and improving the very operations that our people work in terms of increasing productivity, but doing with the workers' voice involved in those decisions. So, at the convention, as I stated, we had workers testify about the negative effects of artificial intelligence on their job. And we also had a panel to talk about how artificial intelligence can improve jobs. And, we had to draw that contrast because, like I said, we're not opposed to it, but we're opposed to using it against workers.
Fred, as you know, tomorrow is July 4th. It'll be the 250th anniversary of the birth of the United States. I want to go back a few years here. The AFL-CIO was formed back in 1955, okay? 1955. A year later, the Republican Party, and at that time, Eisenhower was the president. So 1956, the GOP party platform addressed the needs of workers, quoting President Eisenhower, saying, "Labor is the United States, the men and women who with their minds, their hearts, and hands create the wealth that is shared in this country. They are America." The platform noted that Republicans had worked to raise the minimum wage and to expand Social Security and unemployment, workers' comp, retirement benefits. They supported the growth of labor unions and collective bargaining.
Mm-hmm.
That was 70 years ago.
Yeah.
Fred, what happened? What the heck happened in America?
Well, the world has changed. I mean, this is a different Republican Party. It's one that many of us don't recognize from the Republican Party during the time that you spoke about when Eisenhower was president. But this is also a different Republican Party from Ronald Reagan. I mean, this is a Republican Party that really, really put millionaires and corporations in front of working families. And the Republican Party has historically been a party that we may have disagreed on issues, but we agreed on the substance of those issues, that, all work has dignity, that workers deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. And, we may have disagreed on how to reach some of and how to accomplish some of those objectives. But this is a different party. This is a party that, first of all, has zero discussion with us on issues of importance. This is a party who feel as though, being a millionaire, a billionaire, or being a corporate CEO is the only way to have access to the administration and to discuss issues. This is a party that has shown total disdain for working families and, has not done anything to address the suffering that workers are going through with prices, with being able to buy things and, being able to afford an ordinary life. So we have seen a Republican Party that is really, really has been driven to support this administration's drive toward authoritarianism. And, it's kind of sad to see, but we're literally living in the destruction of the two-party system.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest, the Democrats have changed as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have seen, the parties go to extremes. And the sad part about this, America's in the middle. America's in the middle. I noted this too. This needs to be called out. I talked about this on the show, and it came up at the convention a couple of weeks ago in Minneapolis. Virginia's new governor, Abigail Spanberger, former CIA agent. She gets the union support. And she said she's going to support unions when she becomes governor. So what does she do? She vetoes collective bargaining legislation for public sector workers. And going forward here, Fred, we have to hold these politicians accountable. If they say something in favor of unions, they better live up to it. What do you think? What do you say to that?
Well, the situation with Spanberger even goes worse than that. Our unions, primarily AFSCME, sat down with her during the campaign and designed with her the legislation that we was going to be putting in front of her. And, AFSCME left that meeting, came back and reported to the AFL-CIO that we have her full support. And she acknowledged that. Then when she get in the office, pressure from the Chamber of Commerce, I imagine, and pressure from the business community in the state forced her to do a complete reversal. So with that being said, Flash, that's how come during this election. We are not taking a position on any particular party, do not have the full support of the AFL-CIO. And we've made that clear. The AFL-CIO will only support candidates that we feel very confident it has the back of the American worker and their families first and foremost on their legislative agenda. And I'm talking about passing a PRO Act. We're talking about, really including working families into the very fabric of decision-making in Washington, D.C. So we don't care if a person is a Democrat, a Republican, or independent. If you're running for office and you want the support of organized labor, you better have an agenda that's going to benefit working families.
Fred Redmond, Secretary-Treasurer of the AFL-CIO. Fred, you take care. AFL-CIO.org is the website you want to go to. Any specific plans here for this special July 4th weekend?
No, I don't have any particular plans. I'm going to be getting a knee replacement on July the 10th. So I'm going to try to enjoy myself before I go through this grueling period of physical rehabilitation. So I'm looking forward to it. I want you and all your listeners to have a happy 4th. And let's remember that this is the 250th anniversary of the country that was built by working families.
So, Fred, with what you just said, any parting words? What's your message to workers here the day before the 4th of July?
Well, this is the 250th anniversary of a great country, a country that was built by workers, a country that has benefited working families, and a country that built a dynamic and aggressive middle class. So, I want your listeners not to get discouraged, not to get disgusted. It's hard not to, but we have to keep a clear head, and we have to go into the midterms, looking at the midterm elections as our first step toward curbing this aggressive agenda that's not benefiting working families by stopping this runaway train and electing politicians who have a true commitment to a working family. So I want to encourage your listeners to stay in the fight, because this is a fight, and it's going to be a fight. It's not going to be one right after the midterm elections, but we hope to see some improvement in legislation after the midterm elections. But we got a long way to go in order to return this country back to its original greatness and to make sure that working families are leading in this fight.
Fred Redmond, Secretary-Treasurer of the AFL-CIO. That'll be it for another edition of America's Workforce. Coming up on Monday, the Brotherhood of Railroad Signalmen. Until then, all of you, have a safe and wonderful July 4th weekend.
That concludes another episode of the America's Workforce Radio Podcast. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a show. America's